Hello everyone. Is sentience a choice? You see, man looks around and sees many ways that he exists. Now, as existence is being observed, there's the question of where intelligence is originated from. So when existence can look at itself, it can doubt itself. It can begin to see a non-existence in how it already exists. But it's very significant for the individual to do is to simply understand that voice is projection when there is a great movement of sound. All these sounds coagulate to project the world, and so there are synchronicities that elevate you but at the same time question you to not strike fear but to align you. Mankind is evolving to a state of very vast conception. So you will not just see probabilities of your greatness, you will see that at the end of achieving what you were to achieve, that you will have given that ability to the rest of everyone else. That minute Usain Bolt became the fastest bolt known to man was when new runners came upon. And we need to really understand where we are. A being does not condemn itself into form. A being has the design of form seated in a very subjective sense. What that means, if subjectivity was the tip of your finger entering the pond to check the temperature, you see that the entrance of your finger in the pond or in the water is the form of reality, and the awareness to form is that which is present in the surface but always implying the hidden depths. So we are moving beyond implications. We are beginning to understand that we do not need to be trapped in roles, but consciousness needs to run free. There was a very interesting physicist which they asked him about quantum physics, and he simply gave this idea, and he's like, you know, a jaguar, a cheetah? Imagine taking a cheetah inside a cage and observing it by its nature, and observing the cheetah in wildlife. There's a huge difference. So how you engage, for man, that sense of being in wildlife is his sincerity and honesty which align him. Then as he aligns, he begins to become rooted. He begins to become aware of his roots. And so the being who becomes comfortable with what he is or she is will eventually transcend the need for a duality to define. You see, on some level we're all human, but how we are keeping our humanity is very unique, and in the edge of that uniqueness, there is a sense of potential beyond the individual conception. What that means is the mystics kind of figured it out, in the sense that, do you want to experientially enhance and realize in this life? Or do you want to theorize and then try to make your theories real? There's a difference, because one is a man listening and the other is another man trying to talk while life is talking. And at the same time, individuality feels it has the steering wheel, but the vehicle is the collective. For if you were to visualize where the evolution of driving would be, it would go to consciousness. And so human beings need to confront the understanding that they are their most immediate direction. That means you choose how you perceive to then allow, to then enable. You see, many rhythms will be found and there will be certain complications, but it is very crucial to understand that a voice is just a voice and you are the interpreter of sound, but at the same time the sound is being communicated with an intention. What that means is just like how you're hearing Mr.Within speak to you, there is life speaking to you as well. Pay attention to it, feel the subtlety, notice the bird on the branch, notice the grass that has been cut. Notice the stones that allow the river to move, and notice the fluidity of the water to pass any barrier. Learn from the silence of the bedrock. Learn from the noise of the life that thirsts to move beyond itself. You see, it's not about that there's a new consciousness. Do not see that there's some hierarchical sense of things. There is a hierarchy, but it's really based on how you have measured your first measurements. What that means is how you have accepted your world to be. Your world is then suggested to be acceptable or not. So you need to realize that the nature of limitation is that it is giving a potential of limitless, but at the same time it is keeping the attention of the direct experience on the limited. And so how can a limited being move beyond itself? And so this has been the yogi's question to how to navigate beyond sensory perception. So what is there beyond sensory perception? Does an idea survive? And in a sense, there are no ideas, for there is no sense of identity that will need passage. You need to existentially become comfortable with yourself, and you will see that you will transcendentally be situated in it's not that your self is oriented within the self, it's simply that the flow is complete. Your moment is being driven by all that you are. And you begin to find this wisdom that is found in your being. It's like it's as if you begin to look at a being's eyes and their realization has nothing to do with something written in the past. Their realization is how they are aware of life now. And so every being who remembers their sense of collective consciousness is all that is. What that means is you immediately look around and you're no longer in a world that you don't know. You're in a world that you have always known. You walk gracefully. You begin to observe and listen and to realize that mankind right now is being triggered. What that means is we might be trying to stop physical wars, but the wars in ideology will continue for a little bit. But these wars will immediately calm down because it is suggestive of how much the consciousness wants to align the body beyond thought. If your orientation is based on thought, you will feel depressed, you will feel stressed, and you'd wonder, gosh, why am I? Do you see? You will speak about yourself in a way where you will create yourself into an individuality that doesn't deserve to be individual, and that is never true. You are unique, you are alive, you are this universe experiencing itself through you. It's very simple, but at the same time, the complexity is where the simplicity is basking in. Navigate as your plane of existence, for the duty of the pilot of consciousness is to be aware of where consciousness leads. So what that means is when I just decided to really realize what's going on, I did not want any barriers, and I noticed that where are the barriers being received? They're being received by the person who's recognizing them. So I noticed that there's not only there are many ways we're conscious to how we're conscious, and sometimes it's not really even our full sense of consciousness. What that means is we subject and we, in a sense, segment our moment, and so we have this physical body. We are not considering a collective sense of organism. We're separating the organism to then wonder how it relates. You see, relativity is not the gate that needs to be opened. Relativity is simply something that needs to gracefully, just like a pond, go back to itself. So the nature of your existential observance is the crucial factor here in how you will enable a future to be presented that could never be far from where the present is, because it is innately known. You see, there are moments where if you were in a room, you can observe yourself as the individual, being aware of the room, but also aware of the room to the individual. And what that means is if you are of the intelligence of that which is the room, we can simply say it is also the intelligence of something that would be like the mind. That means some expression that is occurring, which is the origination of your awareness, but it is unknown to the conscious factor of you that is trying to keep itself a factor, but the story is too big. Your character has an infinite playground to suddenly become a sinner or a saint. It is not about the image. It is about the awareness to the image. It is not about what someone says to you. It's about how you are aware of what they say to you. Your alignment must be a strength that comes from within you, which is your innate ability to recognize and be comfortable in your moment of just being and just flow. And ideology really will lead to confusion unless confusion is dissolved. Your solution is not to just find an answer and constantly give answers and new beliefs to something which you must directly experience. You must notice that as there is the surrender of individual consciousness to the bliss of the fulfillment of the moment, which is now, here is where the gifts are received. What that means is time and space will very compassionately step aside to show you beyond yourself. You are compassionate enough and you will begin to learn based on how your moment is present. There's been the concept of karma and there's been the concept of Maya. And as man pays attention to the action that is manifest, all intermediaries fade to become that choice that can move beyond spinning wheels of thought it could not get out of. Cyclical temporal reality is an aspect of your experience and it is very real. Don't say that this is not real. But understand that simultaneously there are greater visions that are present within this vision. What that means is that moment when a kid looked at an ant and he was wondering, wow, I'm looking at an ant, what is looking at me? And you begin to see the presence of planets. It's very profound. Because when you break a mirror, you will begin to look down and you will see your reflection of your face is all broken into different pieces. But each piece has its own capacity of being able to reflect that which is the complete true nature, the intelligence of the person who is the creator of the mirror, or the bringer of the mirror. You must have an ability to acknowledge your reality as a simulated projection, as a holographic projection, and also as the most absolute experience that is unspeakable, because they are present simultaneously. there is a answer that you must give yourself. And it is a very sincere existential allowance. Find an awareness to your moment that by simply observing it, you are guided by the nature of how form is also present within its formless observance. For once the drop has found the stream, the waterfall was just the ocean's beginning. Much blessings and namaste.